Hello, my name is Venkata Potluri and I teach 6th and 7th grade ASD level 1 students who are non-verbal or minimally verbal. In this reflection, I want to share my thoughts on TEDx talk Students Need to Lead the Classroom, Not Teachers by Catherine Cadwell. I will talk about two meaningful ideas from the presentation, what I learned from them, how they connect to the book Owning It, and how I plan to apply these ideas in my own classroom. I will also share one idea that I respectfully disagree with based on my experience teaching with autistic students. One idea from the TED Talk show that stayed with me was the point that students learn more deeply when they are once the asking the questions instead of the teacher doing all the talking. When students take the lead in discussion, they become more curious and more invested. This made me think about my own teaching. As a special education teacher, I often feel responsible for guiding every step. I tend to ask more of the questions because I want my students to feel supported. Hearing her message made me reflect on how much space I actually give my students to think and explore on their own. For my AST students, especially those who are nonverbal, asking questions look different. It might be pointing to a picture, selecting a symbol on a device, or showing curiosity through eye gaze or gestures. But the core idea still applies. Students learn more when they initiate, not when everything is delivered to them. This reminded me that leadership can look different for different learners. Even a small gesture from a nonverbal student can be a form of leadership if I treat it that way. It helped me see that communication independence is a form of the student leadership, even without speaking spoken word. Another meaningful point from the TED talk was the idea that civil discourse does not just happen. It has to be taught and supported. The speaker emphasized the students need structured opportunities to practice respectful communication. This resonated with me because communication and social interaction are areas where my ASD students often need explicit instruction. Her message helped me see that discussion skills are not an extra part of teaching. They are essential life skills. For my students, civil discourse might not be a full verbal conversation. It might be taking turns with a communication device, waiting for a peer to finish, or responding with a gesture or a picture. But the principle is the same. Students need chances to practice respectful communication. This reminded me that communication is not only about speaking, it also about listening and responding. It showed me that I need to build these opportunities into my daily routines. As I continued thinking about the TED talk, one of my biggest takeaways was realizing that stepping back as a teacher does not mean the classroom becomes chaotic. Instead, it means giving students room to grow. When students lead discussion, they develop confidence, ownership, and deeper understanding. This challenged me my thinking because I often feel pressure to keep everything structured and predictable. But I realize that sometimes I may be over scaffolding. Even nonverbal students can show leadership through choosing the materials, initiating a routine, or helping a peer. I learned that stepping back can be doing gradually and safely, even in a special education setting. I also learned that students led learning is not just about academics. When students listen to each other, respond respectfully, and share ideas, the classroom becomes more inclusive. For ASD students, community looks different. It might be celebrating when a peer uses their device independently or waiting patiently for someone to finish typing. These movements build a sense of belonging. The TED Talk helped me see that leadership is not only about speaking, it is about participation and shared responsibility. As I reflected on the TED Talk, I found a strong connection to the book Owning It. One clear connection is to chapter 5, page number 37. I said, be quiet and start talking. Kajetani explains that students need opportunities to learn out loud and the teachers should not fear students' participation. He emphasizes that the person doing the talking is often the one doing the learning. This aligns with the TED Talks message about the letting students lead discussion. For my classroom, this connections is important because it reminds me that even ASD students can take leadership roles when given structure and support. Their talking may look different, but their learning is just as meaningful. I also saw a connection to the chapter 2, page number 15, first impressions. Kajetani talks about seeing the tone from the first minute of the class by giving students purpose and ownership. This connects to the TED's Talks message about creating a learning environment where students feel responsible for the conversation. For my ASD students, the first 5 minutes are crucial. They need predictable routines, visual schedules, and clear expectations. When I start class with a student led routine, even something simple like choosing the morning greeting symbol, it sets the tone for the shared ownership. Another strong connection is to the chapter 3, page number 21. Visibility is everything. Kajetani explains that teachers need to be consistently present, greeting students at the door, moving around the room, and staying engaged. Even though he does not use the exact word trust, the idea is clear. When teachers are visible and predictable, students feel safe and supported. This connected to the TED Talk because Cadwell also explained that students will only take the lead when they feel secure. For my ASD level 1 students, teacher presence mean being calm, steady, and emotionally available. When they feel safe, they are more willing to take small risks, like choosing a picture on their AAC device or initiating a gesture. Thinking about how to implement these ideas, I plan to introduce short, structured students led discussions. For example, I can start with a simple routine where students use their AAC devices to ask each other one question about the lesson. Even if the question is pre-programmed, the act of the initiating builds the leadership. I also want to create a weekly students leader role where one student help guide the warm-up routine. This could include choosing the gathering, selecting the visual schedule, order, or leading a movement break. These small leadership movements build confidence and independence. Another strategy I want to use is teaching explicit communication routines, such as how to agree, disagree, or add on using visual and sentence starters. For nonverbal students, this might mean selecting symbols like I agree, my turn, or I want to add. These routines support the TED Talks emphasize on civil discourse and help my students participate in ways that feel safe and structured. I also want to practice a gradual release of responsibility. Instead of answering every question immediately, I will redirect students to ask each other first. This shifts the classroom from teacher centered to student centered and encourages peer interaction. While I agreed with most of the TED talk, there was one idea I did not fully agree with. The speaker suggested that the teachers should step back almost entirely during the discussions. While I understand the intention behind this idea, I do not think it applies the same way in special education classroom. My students often need more scaffolding, modeling, and visual supports. If I step back too much, some students may feel lost or anxious. In my classroom, student led learning works best when I provide structured first, such as sentence starters, visual cues, and guided questions, and then gradually release the responsibility. So, I agree with the goal. I would adapt the strategy to fit the needs of my learners. Overall, this TED talk inspired me to rethink how much space I give students to speak questions and guide the learning. The connections to owning it helped me see practical ways to build students' voice into my classroom routines. Moving forward, I plan to create more opportunities for students led discussions while still providing the structure my ASD students need. Thank you for listening my reflection. Bye.